So, hello and welcome. I am Lucy Ascham. I am an energy expert and I work and live in Sheffield, and I work online on Zoom as well around the world. So I'm delighted to have been invited to talk to you today about sleep. It's not something I've always been good at. When I was a child, I was an excellent sleeper. And when I got to my 20s and my mum died, I was a terrible sleeper. Then my child came along and he didn't get the hang of it until he was about 6 years old. So I have had various periods of my life where I have not known how to sleep very well. However, one of the things I've found that's really helpful is to actually look at how we can rest. So how to consciously rest during the day, and particularly for 5 minutes or so before we get into bed. And that can really help to decompress the spine, help us to be more present with ourselves, help us to consciously notice where we may be having tension in our body, and also get to sort of reunite our mind, our muscles, our emotions, everything together so that we kind of come into sleeping and into the bed in as much a kind of whole and united way as possible. So one of my main skills is the Alexander technique, and I've been teaching that for 20 years. And worked with thousands of people. So sometimes people come to me because of head and neck and back injuries or complaints. Sometimes they come because they're anxious and stressed, and obviously that can affect their sleep as well. I also help people when they're rehabilitating from injury and surgery. So it's quite a wide range of different issues that I help people with. But my sort of speciality and area of expertise is really the neck region of the body. So this is interesting when it comes to sleeping, because obviously we're usually horizontal. I say usually because some people, especially after surgery, may have to be more propped up on cushions and things. But for the most part, we're horizontal when we're sleeping. And so then there's a question about pillows. At some point when I'm working with clients, they always say, so Lucy, tell me about pillows. What kind of pillow should I have? How big, how soft, how wide, how firm, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very personal decision. But what I can tell you is some principles which may help you decide. So one of the things is to find something that's kind of firm but not hard and not too soft, because then you put your head into it, but actually it squishes onto the side and you lose the support. So the job of the pillow is actually to try and maintain the natural curves, but the natural alignment and length of your head, neck and spine. So if you're lying on your side, you'll see that your arm and your shoulder girdle has a certain width to it. So when you're on your side, that tends to get a little bit more sort of pulled in. We tend not to sort of sleep like wooden soldiers right on the end of that bit. So it tends to be that we kind of curl our shoulder blade round and sleep more actually on our ribs. So then the cushion of the pillow is going to be building up that space between your ear, the side of your head really, and the bed. So you're looking to actually make up that much space when you're lying on your side. So, you know, if you've got somebody else who can help you figure out what that is. Our spines are very bendy and quite flexible, ideally, and they can actually sort of have quite a degree of tolerance in terms of whether it's a little bit too little or a little bit too much. It's absolutely fine to have a little bit of variation there. But ideally, we're wanting to kind of allow that the head is supported and the spine isn't too sort of bent out of shape while we're asleep. So something I tend to do is have two pillows so that I can actually have just one when I'm on my back, because there's a different distance between the back of your head, the bed, than there is the side here. This is obviously bigger and it's much smaller at the back of your head to the bed. So I'll just slip one pillow away when I'm on my back, and then I'll just sort of drag it under my ear when I turn over, because I don't know about you, but I often actually wake up a tiny bit when I'm changing positions in bed. Just enough awakeness to kind of, oh yeah, I need another bit of pillow here, or I don't need that bit of pillow, and just move it out the way. There's not enough to wake me up, but just to sort of make myself comfortable and make an adjustment. So there are various different sort of arrangements of head, spine, and limbs that we can have when we're actually asleep. So it's good to practice these things when you're awake. So one of the things that I really recommend when you're getting ready for bed is to actually lie down, perhaps on the carpet or rug next to your bed, just for 5 minutes before you get into bed. So the way that I would suggest you lie down is actually with a small pile of books. Here's one to demonstrate. Just an inch or two of books underneath your head. So you want it literally underneath your head. You don't want it on your spine or the top of your back here, just on the skull underneath your head. And what that does is it supports the natural curves. So you're going to lie on your back, your knees are going to be bent, feet flat on the floor, and your hands can either be somewhere on your belly. Often it's good to have them independent of each other, or they can just be out to the sides, you know, in a sort of star-shaped, wherever you want, but somewhere on your belly is usually quite sort of calming and restful. So you can also feel your belly moving on the tide of your breath. And as you lie there, it's a chance to reconnect with yourself so that you can really kind of get a sense of, there's my head. Here's its contact with the books, and the books are nice and firm, so they give you really good information about what's you and what's the book. And when our head is supported by something quite firm, then actually our muscles can release better. When they're actually on the pillow, we're going to go to sleep, so we can then be unconscious and we can just let gravity do the work. When we're resting consciously before bedtime, it can be an idea to just take a little moment to allow the muscles to really release consciously. So we're already starting the process of, you know, really resting and sleeping before we get into bed. And then hopefully when our brain is kind of quietened down a little bit and we've reconnected to our body, then it'll be easier to actually sort of really switch off when we actually get into bed. So being on the firm floor, you can't do this on your sofa. It's not going to work because you need the firmness of the floor, you need the firmness of the books. And then your bones can really rest. The muscles can release whatever the busyness is of the day. So it might be that you've been active before bed, it might be that you've been reading, maybe, you know, you've been tidying up and getting the house kind of in order before you go to bed. But just having a few minutes to really connect with yourself can be very, very precious and very useful. And the idea is that we're consciously releasing tension. So a lot of people sort of assume that when they get into bed, that they're already relaxed, or that so they should somehow know how to switch off or how to dim down all the busyness and stresses and strains and excitements of the day. But actually, you know, it can be something that we need to practice and work on a little bit. So having a bit of conscious time before you get into bed or any time in the day is really, really useful. So as you're lying on your back and you're looking at the ceiling, suggest you have the lights off already. You're not going to get too comfy and fall asleep on the floor, I don't suppose, so don't worry about that. If you need a blanket, then that's also a good idea. And allow the weight of your head to rest on the books. So your muscles around your throat and neck and upper back can all start to release. So it's not an active thing that we're doing. We're not sort of busy moving and stretching and any of that stuff. It's more that we're reconnecting our mind with our body, with our emotions in this present moment, so that we can actually allow the body to do its own unwinding, its own untwisting, its own releasing. Hope that makes sense. And so when you're lying there, you can really embody yourself. So I realize that working with people, they may have, you know, sore back or sore neck, but they have no idea how it came to be sore. They've got no idea really, you know, what's going on with themselves during the busy, active daily life. So having some quiet time to just say, hello, here's my head, here's my neck and spine. The words are the same thing. The neck is the spine is the neck. We don't have a separate bit of body that's actually a neck. Who knew? So it's actually a continuation of the spine. So when we ungrip the head from the spine, it allows the whole backbone, the whole central column of spine to release. And that is so important, because if we've actually got tension along our spine, that's actually pressing into the central nervous system, and that can affect all of our fingers and limbs. I don't know about you, but sometimes you can sort of fall asleep a bit awkwardly on one arm and it can go a bit numb, a bit, we call it dead, don't we? But it goes numb because we've actually pressed on one of the nerves, so that gets between a bone and the hard surface that we're resting on, and the nerve literally kind of gets squeezed, and that stops some of the information going to and fro. And it also stops some of the circulation going down to the end of our limbs as well, which means that they get a bit numb. And so when we wake up from that and kind of get moving again, then the circulation comes back in, but so does the nerve sensation. It's often quite intense and get pins and needles. So one way to think about that, if you're then moved to your bed and you're lying down and you've got either one pillow under the back of your head, or you've got two pillows under the side of your head, depending on your body shape and size, is to let your head rest through the pillows onto the bed. So amazingly, you may find to begin with that actually you're slightly lifting your head, that you're slightly levitating, you're slightly raising away from that support. And it's not something we do deliberately or consciously, but that can be a habit that I see very often. People don't know how to rest. That's one of the things I help teach them. Another thing is that actually when you're on your side, well, anywhere on your body, because we're quite cylindrical, in fact, is that you actually can rest on your head, which is round. So any part of your head is fine. Any part of your ribs is fine. Any part of your pelvis is fine. So we concentrate on those 3 points, letting your head rest, letting your ribs rest, letting your pelvis rest. The spine connects them all together. And then the limbs will actually find themselves much more comfortable in whatever shape or form we want. One other important thing to mention is that actually if you're resting on your front, you do not want to have a pillow under your head or face, because what that effectively does is it pushes your head back and down and squishes the back of your spine particularly. So if you have a pillow and you want to be a bit more comfy, you can actually have it under your chest. Just bring the pillow down so it's actually below here, and then your neck and your nose will be much more comfortable if you're lying on your front. So I hope these tips are useful, how to rest before you get into bed, how to actually really take time to embody yourself, to take use of the contact points with the support, either from the books and the floor, from the pillows and the bed, and to really think about allowing your head, your ribs and your pelvis to be the main points of contact, so that you can let go of tension there and the limbs and the rest of your mind will follow. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. And if you would like to contact me, then my name is Lucy Ascham and I'm in Sheffield. Thanks very much, Yewande.